There was one decision I carried for years, a decision that I was convinced had almost killed my father. I'm a registered nurse. I spent years helping patients and families understand complicated medical decisions. But that day, I wasn't his nurse. I was his daughter. My dad was in the emergency room having a heart attack. The cardiologist came in and explained that my dad was too unstable to go to the cath lab. He recommended a newer medication, a blood thinner that he said he had seen work very well in similar situations. And then he looked at me, and he needed an answer. I tried to quickly call my husband. I tried to call some of my friends, but I didn't get an answer, and there wasn't time to call anybody else. The decision was mine, so I made it. I said yes. And then a couple of days later, I noticed something in my dad's lab work. His hemoglobin and hematocrit were dropping. You'll hear people refer to that as the H&H. I remembered looking at those numbers and immediately thinking, he's bleeding. My dad had developed a gastrointestinal bleed. He lost so much blood, and they were struggling so hard to get him IV access. We ended up in the ICU, and suddenly I was standing there, trying to make even more decisions. You see, the problem was this. We had to decide what we were going to use the IV access that he did have for. Do we use it for the blood? Do we use it for the medications and the antibiotics and the fluids? Do we use it for the blood pressure medication? We needed 3 lines, and we only had 2. There were not enough lines for everything, and I knew what that could possibly mean. I stayed with him as much as I could. My husband and I tried to call in as many favors as we could in the hospital. I was trying to hold everything together, but inside, I couldn't stop thinking one very intrusive thought. I did this. I made the decision. I gave him that medication. I was supposed to protect him. I was all he had left. At least that's what I believed at the time. And the guilt was hard, and the guilt was heavy. My dad, he survived. He had always been a fighter. But you know what didn't survive? My confidence. My confidence did not make it out of that ICU room. And I carried that weight for years. For years, I thought what happened to me, what happened to my dad meant that I couldn't trust myself anymore. It took me a long time to realize this wasn't a character flaw. It wasn't because I wasn't smart, or I wasn't trying, or I didn't love him enough. It wasn't because I suddenly forgot how to make a good decision. I think what happened to me has a name: decision fatigue. I know there's probably many of you out there who have felt it also. Decision fatigue. Too many impossible decisions coming too close together. And when you make that many high stakes calls that fast, eventually one of them does not go the way that you had hoped it would. And your brain will quietly decide that maybe I'm not good at this anymore. Maybe you've never stood in an ICU making life and death decisions, but I have a feeling you've had your own version of that moment. Maybe it was deciding whether to leave a marriage, whether to change careers, whether to have another baby, whether to move your parents to assisted living or a nursing home, whether to take a new job or stick it out at the one you have but don't love, whether to go or whether to stay. One decision that seemed to change everything. And after that, every decision feels heavier. That was me too. For years, I thought my problem was confidence. It wasn't. My problem was trust. I had stopped trusting myself. There is a difference. Confidence says, I think I can. Trust says, even if this doesn't turn out the way that I hope, I'll figure it out. I had lost that. And once you lose trust in yourself, every decision feels like it starts to carry the weight of your entire future, even the little ones. What should I do? What if I regret it? What if I choose wrong again? You start asking everybody else for their opinion, looking for certainty in the decision, waiting for someone to tell you what's the right answer, because trusting yourself feels too risky. One day I realized something. I wasn't trying to make good decisions anymore. I was trying to avoid the bad ones, looking for the safe ones. Those are completely different goals. Avoiding mistakes is impossible. Living wisely is possible. That realization changed everything for me. So I started asking myself 5 questions, and I still use them today. First, am I making this decision from fear or from wisdom? Fear is loud. Fear wants guarantees. Wisdom rarely gets guarantees. Wisdom simply asks, what is the right next thing? I know you've heard that question before on this channel. What is the right next thing? Second, what do I actually know for certain, separate from what I'm afraid of? Feelings are real, but they're not always facts. When we've been through enough pain, our brains become really good at predicting disaster. Sometimes they're trying to protect us. Sometimes they're just replaying old wounds over and over. Third, if someone I loved came to me with this exact situation, what would I tell them? It is amazing how much kinder we are to everyone else. We'll encourage them. We'll believe in them. Then we turn around and we talk to ourselves in ways that we would never speak to someone that we love and care about. Next, what's the actual cost of waiting versus the actual cost of choosing and being wrong? This one surprised me because waiting has a cost too. It costs time, confidence, peace. Sometimes we're paying a very high price to avoid the possibility of making a mistake. And finally, who do I trust to help me think through this without making the decision for me? Notice I didn't say who should decide for me, because that's what I used to do. I wanted someone else to carry the weight. What I really needed was someone who could help me think clearly while still leaving the decision in my hands. Looking back, I don't believe one complication defined me. And I don't even believe that the one decision defined me. What damaged my confidence was believing that one painful outcome erased every good decision I'd ever made before. That wasn't true. It just felt true in the moment. There's a big difference. If you've stopped trusting yourself, I want you to hear this. I wish I could tell you there was one decision that gave me my confidence back, but there wasn't. It came back the same way that it disappeared, one decision at a time. You do not rebuild trust by waiting until you're certain. You rebuild trust the same way that you build trust with another person. One kept promise at a time, one honest decision at a time, one courageous step at a time, one small choice, then another, and then another. Eventually, the evidence starts to compound, not because life gets easier, but because you begin proving to yourself that whatever happens, you'll handle it. That's what I had to learn. And maybe that's exactly what you needed to hear today. If it was, I'd love for you to subscribe. Next week, I want to tell you about the month that the best thing and the hardest thing in my life happened at the very same time. The month I got the biggest promotion of my career and started losing my dad. That one is next week. I hope you'll come back. But until then, I want you to keep going because your next chapter is worth it.